Hi, I'm Matisyahu Mac. I am bored out of my mind today, so I thought I would share a wonderful recipe with everybody. Today we're going to do some kosher Mexican food. We're going to make a traditional Mexican dish called Arroz con Pollo, or Arroz con Pollo, which means chicken with rice, or rice with chicken. It's a wonderful dish. It can be served as an entree. It can be served as a filling for tacos or for burrito, however you would like to serve it. But let's get started. Okay, so before we get started, make sure that you have the following ingredients ready to go. You need a cup of rice. You need some fresh salsa, or you can use jarred salsa. It's up to you. I made this fresh salsa yesterday, and then the next day or two, I'm actually going to post a video of how I make what I consider to be the world's best fresh salsa. But in a pinch, you can always use store-bought salsa, or you can make your own at home if you're already familiar with your own recipe. You'll need some cilantro. Obviously, you'll want to make sure it's washed, that there's no bugs. You know how to deal with cilantro. I use this consommé. I always use the one without the MSG. I feel better about it, whatever. You'll need some fresh cumin. I have about a tablespoon and a half of fresh cumin here, and you'll need some salt and some chopped onion as well. So make sure you have these ingredients ready to go in addition to your black kosher chicken. Okay, in terms of your chicken, I happen to buy a cut up whole chicken, and I put it in a brine for a couple of hours. I like to do that because it helps the chicken to retain its moisture, keeps it from getting dried out. And from that, I separated some breast here. I've got a drumstick here. I've got, what's this, part of a breast. We've got a wing over here. And we've got basically just some parts of the chicken that we're going to use. I'm not going to use the whole thing because I don't need to make that much. So make sure that you've brined your chicken for a couple of hours. I take the skin off. You don't have to. It's up to you. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is heat up your saucepan. Bring it up to about a medium high and put in about a tablespoon or a tablespoon and a half of oil. And then what we're going to want to do is put our rice directly in there and fry it up. Basically what we want this rice to do is to slightly brown. This makes a big difference in how your recipe turns out. So let it soak up the oil and brown here in the saucepan for a few minutes. Usually takes 5 or 10 minutes to thoroughly get this nice and brown. Okay, now that we have our rice out of the way, I've put another tablespoon and a half of oil into my pan, and I'm going to start putting pieces of chicken down and searing them. And I'm going to let them sear for about 2 minutes on each side, so that we can get a nice seared crust on the outside of the chicken. And so we'll just let those sit for a couple of minutes. And we can start turning some of these pieces over, like the legs, the breast. We're going to let this side sear. On these drumsticks, it's nice to make sure that you're searing all places that can come into contact with your skillet. And again, that'll make a nice difference in the final product. Seared the sides of the chicken. You'll want to lower the heat and cover it for about 8 minutes or so. We'll let the heat go down, and we'll make sure that that chicken has a chance to cook more thoroughly and to let some of those natural juices work themselves with the brine that we pulled it out of. Okay, so it's been about 8 minutes, and I'm going to uncover this. And as you can see, the chicken is more thoroughly cooked, although it is going to cook more as we continue with the recipe. So I'm going to take the chicken out, and I'm going to transfer it into a bowl here while I prepare the rest of the meal. And the first thing we're going to want to do is put our onions in. And we're going to want to add our comino in, our cumin, so that the flavors from the cumin immediately get activated on the hot pan and in the oil and start to come out. And we're going to let this saute for a couple of minutes. Add in just a little bit more oil. It's a bit dry. And I'm going to add in my cilantro. I'm going to add in just a little bit of salt. We don't want this too hot because we don't want to burn the onions. What we want them to do is become somewhat translucent. We want to let them saute there for a few minutes. Now, one thing I will mention that I left off when I showed you all the ingredients that you're going to need, and this is crucial, this is important. I can't believe I forgot, but you should have some garlic as well. Mexican food would not be Mexican food without garlic. I would recommend for this recipe using 1 to 2 cloves chopped. I tend to use the frozen Israeli little cubed garlics, which are highly convenient. I get them at Trader Joe's, but I don't know where else you can get them. I imagine any kosher store would have them. We're going to let these onions caramelize just a little bit. Become a little bit more translucent. And you can really smell the cumin. As I said, I put about 1.5 tablespoons. I'm going to put a little bit more, just for flavor. In my opinion, you can't have too much cumin. Well, maybe you could, but in this case, I think this is going to be fine. And I'm going to add in 2 cloves of garlic. And if it starts to get a little bit dry like this, you can add in just a touch more oil. And really what we're doing here is sauteing the garlic, the onions, and the cilantro, which is going to be a very, very nice base for our flavor. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to bring up the heat just a little bit, because once we add in our salsa, we want it to be nice and hot, so it starts activating the fresh tomatoes, the peppers, etc. I'm going to add in my salsa here. We're going to let that come up to heat. Let's get the rest of this salsa in there. And look at that, it smells amazing. So as this comes up to heat, I'm now going to start putting my chicken back in. We're going to make sure nothing is sticking. And lastly, we're going to add in our rice that we fried up earlier. Now what you want to make sure is that your rice is completely submerged with the water that you're going to add in. And as this comes up to heat, it's going to start boiling, so you have to be careful. But you do want this to come to a nice temperature. Now I'm going to put in about 1.5 teaspoons of our broth. We're going to make sure that we have enough liquid in here for the rice to be able to cook thoroughly and come up. So again, make sure that your rice is not on top of the chicken, but that your chicken is inside of the rice. We'll taste that for flavor. Oh, the flavor is just amazing. And we want to make sure that we have enough water to cook the chicken. I'm sorry, we need to have enough water to fully cook the rice. Which is about 1.5 cups of water. If you used a cup of rice, you want to use about 1.5 cups of water, because your salsa and the vegetables that we put in here are also going to add in some water. And finally, we'll want to cover this up. Okay, so now it's completely covered up, and we're going to let it cook here for about 20 minutes. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes, and we're going to uncover this. Let's see what we've got. Oh my gosh, look at that. Look at that. So what we're going to do now is take it off of the heat, and we're going to let it sit covered for about 10 minutes, and it's going to be ready to go. Okay, so I've let it rest about 10 minutes, and it is pretty much ready to go. Look at that. We've got our delicious chicken, which is resting here inside of the rice. This rice is amazing. You can serve this as your entree. You can make burritos out of it. You can make tacos out of it. It's just wonderful, and I hope that you enjoy it. So I'm heating up one of my homemade tortillas, which on a future video I will show you my homemade tortilla recipe. I made these a couple of days ago, and I'm heating this one back up on my crepe griddle, which is what I also use to make the tortillas themselves initially, and use it for other things as well. Not just crepes. Actually, I don't think I've ever made a crepe with this. I make Ethiopian injera with these. And here we go. Wonderful arroz con pollo, served with fresh salsa and a hot tortilla. It's a wonderful meal. Thank you.